You're standing in your bathroom, staring at a pile of things you promised yourself you'd throw away. Old messages you swore you'd stop rereading, photos of people you keep forgiving in your head, clothes that belong to a version of you who could survive on 3 hours of sleep and a smile. Tonight you're doing the healthy thing, deleting, blocking, saying no, letting go. And your chest isn't filling with freedom. It's filling with grief, like you're killing off the only person who ever knew how to keep you alive. Everyone says healing is how you find yourself. No one warns you it can feel exactly like disappearing. This isn't a video about self-care aesthetics or 5 tricks to be your best you. This is about why real healing, the kind that changes how you love, work, attach and cope, often feels like losing your personality, your relationships, even your usefulness. It's about why your nervous system panics when you finally stop overgiving, and how to walk through that panic without abandoning the parts of you that once kept you safe. The version of you that is falling apart might not be the broken one, it might be the costume. Let's start with the part you never see on those soft pastel healing quotes. You finally say no instead of, "It's okay, don't worry about it." And the room goes quiet. Someone looks hurt. Someone else looks annoyed. You feel like you just did something cruel. You don't feel empowered, you feel mean. You cancel plans because you're exhausted. And instead of relief, your brain whispers, "See, you're unreliable. People are going to leave." You stop answering every message instantly, and suddenly you're replaying every silence like evidence that you're becoming a bad friend. You start setting boundaries with family and they say things like, "You've changed," or "I don't even recognize you anymore." And the worst part is, you agree. Because for years, you meant the one who always picked up the phone, always smoothed over the conflict, always stayed late, always swallowed it. So when you stop, it doesn't just feel like you're changing a habit. It feels like you're betraying a person. Sometimes healing even makes you feel less functional. You used to push through everything. Now the more you listen to your body, the more it seems to break down. You cry more. You need more rest. You snap at things you used to silently endure. And there's this awful secret question. If healing makes me softer, messier, more emotional, what if I liked myself better when I was numb but efficient? You scroll past content that says, "You're becoming your true self," and part of you wants to believe it. But another part is terrified. If I let go of the self who got me this far, who will I even be? If you've ever looked at your growth and worried you were actually just breaking, this is for you. And if this is already touching something raw, notice that you're exactly the kind of person this channel is quietly being built around. First thing, you're not crazy for feeling like you're disappearing. The version of you that's scared isn't malfunctioning. It's doing its job. For most of your life, your survival strategies weren't just behaviors. They were your identity. Maybe you were the reliable one, the fixer, the overachiever, the emotionally low-maintenance friend. Your nervous system learned a simple equation. People pleased. I'm safe. Needs hidden. I'm loved. Performance high. I belong. Do something enough times, especially under stress, and your brain tags it as me. So when you stop, your body doesn't interpret it as growth. It interprets it as self-erasure. Of course, that feels like losing yourself. In a way, you are. You're losing a costume that got fused to your skin. And here's the second problem. Healing takes away the anesthetic before it gives you new muscles. For years, your coping mechanisms were painkillers. People-pleasing, perfectionism, staying busy, humor, numbing out. They all soften the sharp edges of your reality. When you start healing, you're basically saying, "I'm going to stop taking the painkillers." So the first thing that happens is not peace, it's sensation. Memories you kept neatly stacked in the back of your mind start sliding off the shelf. Loneliness you outran by overworking finally catches up. Anger you swallowed starts sitting in your throat with nowhere to go. You're not getting worse. You're finally feeling what was always there. Imagine taking a cast off a broken leg. At first, the air stings. The limb feels wrong, weak, unfamiliar. Walking again looks pathetic compared to the way you used to hop around with the cast. If you judged your healing leg by how graceful it looks, you'd put the cast back on. But the limp is not a failure. It's the proof that your bone is allowed to move again. Third, this isn't just personal. There's a reason healing feels like treason. Your family system, your workplace, your culture, they all quietly benefited from your unhealed self. The over-functioning you is great for capitalism. You don't complain, you work late, you take on extra. You call it just helping out. The self-sacrificing you is convenient for dysfunctional families. You're the one who keeps the peace, absorbs the tension, makes excuses for everyone's behavior. The numb, always available you is ideal for friendship groups built on one person always being the emotional dump site. So when you set boundaries, rest, say that hurt me, or stop performing, you're not just changing, you're breaking contracts that nobody admits were there. Of course they'll say, you're not yourself lately. What they often mean is, you're no longer the version of you that made our lives easier at your expense. This is not proof that your healing is wrong. It's proof that the systems around you are built on your harm. And if you're listening to this and thinking, wait, that's literally my whole life. You're not alone in some private glitch. You're part of a quiet crowd of people rewriting the roles they were handed, even if no one around them claps for it yet. Fourth, there's a kind of grief nobody explains, the grief of outgrowing who you had to be. Even if your old self was exhausted and brittle, they worked. They got you through school, through chaos, through breakups, through nights where there wasn't any help coming. So when you start healing, it can feel like walking away from an old friend. You miss how clear the rules used to be. Say yes, be useful, don't need too much. You knew exactly how to earn approval. Now you're in this strange middle ground. You're not who you were. You're not yet who you'll become. You're in the hallway between two rooms, holding all your old clothes, and nothing fits properly. That disorientation is real. So is the nostalgia. Sometimes you'll catch yourself thinking, at least back then I knew my place, and it might scare you. Like you're tempted to go back, but missing the predictability of your old cage doesn't mean the cage was good. It just means your nervous system is grieving the simplicity of captivity. Let me say something that might sound almost heretical. You don't have to hate the person you were in order to outgrow them. You can thank them for surviving in conditions you'd never want to return to, and still gently take the keys out of their hands. Fifth, healing isn't a clean swap, it's an integration. Your brain wants it to be simple, old self versus new self, broken you versus healed you. But real identity doesn't work like a before and after photo. Think of a tree ring. Each year doesn't replace the last, it wraps around it. The version of you who fawned, fixed, overworked, joked through the pain, they're not being deleted. They're being moved out of the driver's seat and into the circle of who you've been. That's why it feels confusing. That's why you catch yourself swinging between extremes, saying yes to everything one week, then wanting to run away from everyone the next. You're not fake because you don't have a perfectly consistent new identity yet. You're in wet cement. The shape is still forming. Confusion is not the opposite of healing. It's one of its main ingredients. So if you feel less sure of who you are right now, that might not be proof that you're lost. It might be the first honest moment where your identity isn't just a list of ways you've kept other people comfortable. Take a breath. You are not behind. You are exactly where someone stands when the mask has cracked and the real face hasn't learned all its expressions yet. So what do you actually do with all this? How do you heal without feeling like you've erased yourself? First, give your inner cast of characters names. When you say, "I feel like I'm disappearing," notice that I might actually be a specific part of you speaking. The part that panics when you rest. Maybe that's the emergency worker who saved you by always staying alert. The part that feels guilty when you set a boundary. Maybe that's the good kid who learned love was conditional on being easy. Instead of saying, "I'm such a mess, I can't change," try, "My good kid is really scared right now. My emergency worker doesn't trust that it's safe to pause." Naming these parts doesn't magically fix everything, but it stops you from treating your entire self as the problem. You're not losing you. You're renegotiating jobs inside the system. Second, reparent the self you're afraid of abandoning. Imagine that old you, the one who said yes to everything, apologized for existing, laughed everything off, is actually a child sitting on the edge of a bed. They're not the villain. They're the kid who thought, "If I act like this, maybe I'll be safe." When you set a boundary today and that child panics, don't scream at them in your head. Don't say, "Shut up, we're healed now." Try this instead. "I know you're scared we'll be rejected if we say no. I remember when that used to be true, but I'm older now. I'm not leaving you. I'm just not going to let other people hurt us to keep them happy." You're not throwing that child in the trash. You're picking them up and carrying them into a life where they don't have to work so hard. Third, build safe dependence on purpose. If your whole history says it's not safe to need anyone, then healing will feel like standing on stage without a script. So don't start with grand gestures. Start with micro-dependence. Telling one trusted friend, "I'm trying to rest more. Can you check in with me next week about how that's going?" Letting someone see you say, "I can't take that on right now," and not over-explaining. Joining spaces, online or offline, where people are also unlearning self-erasure, so your nervous system can witness in real time that you're not the only one refusing to be a useful ghost. If something in this video feels like that kind of space for you, you can always save it and come back to it on the days you're tempted to go back to your old role. Think of it as leaving a light on for your future self. Finally, expect relapse and make it part of the plan. You will have days where you slip right back into overgiving, overworking, over-explaining. You'll catch yourself halfway through saying, "It's fine, don't worry about me," and only notice when it's too late. That doesn't mean you've lost yourself again. It means your nervous system went back to the last thing it knew for sure. Instead of, "Wow, I've learned nothing," try, "Okay. Today my survival brain drove the car again. What was happening that made it feel so urgent?" Relapse is not a verdict, it's data. You can look at it with curiosity instead of contempt. Was I tired? Alone? Around certain people? Did something remind me of an old dynamic? Then, even if it's 3 hours later, you're allowed to circle back and say, "Hey, I said yes earlier, but I've realized I can't actually do that." Every time you do that, you're teaching your system, we can correct. We don't have to disappear just because we slipped for a second. Healing without losing yourself isn't about never wobbling. It's about wobbling and still choosing again and again not to hand your entire life back to the person you had to be. So come back to that bathroom, the messages open on your phone, the clothes on the floor, the version of you who could survive anything as long as they abandoned themselves first. Imagine you're not standing there alone this time. Older you walks in, not perfectly healed, not glowing, just a little steadier. They don't rip the phone out of your hand. They sit beside you on the cold tile and say, "We're not deleting you. We're deleting the rules that told you this was the only way to be loved." Maybe you don't block everyone tonight. Maybe you just archive one conversation. Maybe you keep the shirt but stop letting it define who you have to be at every party. You look in the mirror, and for a second you don't recognize yourself, not because you're gone, but because there's finally enough space for someone new to arrive. If you want more company for that slow, confusing arrival, you can subscribe and keep this little corner of the internet on your map. From being the person you had to be, to meeting the person you actually are. From surviving by disappearing, to healing without erasing yourself. From calling it losing you, to finally realizing you were never meant to live as a costume.